All right, finally some decent volatility in the index today. We came into the session. Essentially, one of the main things I was talking about this morning was stay patient off the open, right? Anytime we have that big gap higher, kind of into an area of no man's land, sometimes into an area of resistance, you'll see those big gaps higher. What we want to do is just see how that gap is going to be treated. I call this my gap rules, right? Anytime we have a big gap outside of the local structure, sometimes you'll hear me talking about gap rules apply to this session. And that's exactly what we had today. We see price gapping higher outside of this near-term range following what was a potential near-term range breakout. So take a look at the structure here. Yesterday during the session recap, we talked about wanting to see how price is going to be trading versus this 53.50 upside level of interest. You get the breakout last night, 10:30 p.m., a retest down into 5 a.m., and then a rally right ahead of that regular trading hours open. Now check the shape of these 15-minute candles heading into that regular trading hours open, right? Not exactly indicative that buyers are going to be stepping in anytime soon. So what we want to do on a session like this is see how that prior breakout point 53.50 is going to be treated. There's essentially no bid there whatsoever. So price just slices right through. Don't want to be touching the longs as always until 10 a.m. reversal time. At the very least, seeing how that 10 a.m. reversal time is going to be looking. That was where we really started to get our first few opportunities for the session, at least for longs. If you were trading the opening drive trade, that short right off the open, that could have been phenomenal. But as far as an actual structure-based play, that came with the 10 a.m. reversal time. You got a couple of long opportunities through here, a little Wyckoff spring, and then following that, you got the VWAP rejection, which just ultimately triggers that move into fresh session lows, and notably right through here, 53.05 near-term range breakdown. Right, so you've probably heard the old Wall Street adage, from failed moves comes fast moves, and so what we see is a failed breakout up through here. Get that fast move lower, price kind of finds a bid versus some of those mid-range reference points, but ultimately, take a look at this. Ultimately, it just bounces right into that 50% retracement, which we know is that Fibonacci sell zone, right? 50 to 61%. So the 50% gets rejected there, right near that near-term volume point of control as well for this week, and then just rolls over. You get the near-term range breakdown. So the question becomes, as always, what's next? Well, interestingly enough, we did see that gap from last Wednesday, May 15th, be completely filled here. So price has finally filled this gap that's been open for the past week and a half or so. Essentially, what I want to see for tomorrow is how price is going to be trading versus today's low. That's the primary reference point I'll be working with. As always, anytime we have these big expansion days, you want to be expecting a slower session. And so the prior day low will give us a good guide for tomorrow's session. If sellers can show that continuation through that prior day low, right, we may see a little bit of continuation, but ultimately I fully expect some type of compression day tomorrow, potentially an inside day, especially ahead of the 3-day weekend. Market is closed on Monday for Memorial Day. So be looking at today's low into essentially 52.70, that downside level of interest, and then maybe this 52.85. That'll be the main watch here on ES, following near-term range breakdown and then gap fill from Wednesday, May 15th. Take a look at this daily chart as well. Daily, and then that weekly is pretty interesting too. Check out that weekly. So this move has pretty much been vertical since May 1st, right? This is the first real pullback that we have seen following what has been pretty much 3 weeks of just a vertical move. So it'll be interesting to see where any buyers who may have missed this rally start to step in. That's kind of what I'll be looking to gauge here. But as far as tomorrow's session, as far as Friday, I want to see how price trades versus today's low on ES. Let's jump over to NQ. NQ pretty similar as far as what we were looking at into that open. Did not love the location. Again, one of the things I had mentioned this morning, if you missed the pre-market prep live stream, really missed out on some key information for today. One of the things I had mentioned was that it's tough to be leaning on pre-market structure when price is just making fresh all-time highs, right? Those are reference points at best. It's not going to be a real level of interest like this area of support right through here at 18,630. We know that price has already tested and held this area. We can reasonably expect buyers to step in here, right? It's not the case when you just have low volume pre-market or overnight reference points. And so again, coming into a session like today, I want to be cautious. Take a look at that 30-minute ahead of the open. Some exhaustion there. You get a sell bar and then that continuation move. Now this bar, if you're trying longs before 10 a.m., what is the thought process there? You're assuming that this bar is going to reverse, or you're just going for a scalp, or what? That is something you have to ask yourself if you're grabbing longs before 10 a.m. There's definitely a short trade until 10 a.m., until that 10 a.m. reversal time. You do not want to fade the directional move ahead of 10 a.m. It's a rule that has served me well over the years. So something to keep in mind. If you got burned on that setup today, that's all right. They are avoidable in the future. Just keep an eye on those higher time frames and then look at 10 a.m. Marks the local low right through there. Get the bounce into VWAP, higher low back into VWAP. Price rolls over. You get a retest down into 18,800 level of interest, right? And then again, if we do that little exercise with the fib from the high, Fibonacci sell zone right through here, the 50 to 61%. That afternoon drift higher, gets sold off into the close. Now tomorrow, we do have NQ into a key area of support. So this is pretty good trade location here at 18,630, now trading about 18,700, 13 minutes until the close. So be looking at either, depending on overnight action and where we're poised to open, I'll be looking at either 18,700 or this 18,630 area. This is definitely support, at least in the near term. So we want to see how either of these levels are going to be treated into the open tomorrow, near the open. Then just take it from there. Again, expecting a little bit of a slower session tomorrow following today's expansion day. Let's take a look at today's range. Yeah, almost, not quite, but almost a 2 ATR move. Finally, some good volatility, and then on elevated volume as well. So probability does favor a slower session tomorrow. It's not a 100% thing, right? As always, you can see that continuation like we did in mid-April. But I just work with probabilities, and then we watch prior day low, which will be today's low. So that'll be the main reference point. Hope you guys had a good session, profitable session. If you have any questions, feel free to shoot me a DM in the Traders Think Tank. Otherwise, I'll see you tomorrow morning for the pre-market prep. Have a good afternoon.